Pat Ryan, you're very welcome to the podcast. Pat, you're well known for your t-shirts. You're a man who loves to adorn very colourful, creative t-shirts. And I can only see you on Zoom here. I can only see the top of your t-shirt. So I've no idea what's going on today. Can you reveal the great reveal here?
Well, it's hardly colourful today, but it's a line from a John Prine song, Angel of Montgomery, make me a poster of an old rodeo.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a song.
What a song.
Can you tell me, do you have any particular relationship with that song, or do you remember when you first heard it?
I first heard it, believe it or not, my daughter Sarah singing it, her version of it, and I loved it. I did hear John Prine sing it previously, but it didn't sink in. And then I heard Sarah sing it. I've heard the O'Connell brothers do it, and it's just everything John Prine does. And the simplicity of it is. The simplicity of it is just beautiful, you know. I mean, I heard a friend of mine called John Hoban. I was up with him in Castlebar. We were in Westport there a couple of weeks ago, and he sang his song by John Prine called Sam Stone, and it's real upbeat music, melody. I can never get that right, but the lyrics were stone cold in your face, like, you know, and I loved that. You know, it almost cods you into listening to the song, you know, and it's kind of upbeat music, and suddenly the lyrics tear you asunder. That's what I love. I love lyrics like that. I love lyrics, you know. Hurt is another one, you know, the Trent Reznor song that's been completely overtaken by Johnny Cash. You know, again, just pure lyrical genius.
There's something in the subtlety of that type of lyricism that it gets underneath your skin, despite your mind, it might be blocked, but it gets into your soul or something.
Absolutely, it goes deeper than just listening to a song for a bit of crack. Like,
yeah,
you know, you know, music and songs are just so important for my life anyway. You know, and I know lots of people's lives, and particularly down here in Clare, because it's such a wealth of music of all kinds, you know, and genres. If that's that inward genre, you know, and so you know, I just love lyrics. I love music. I love lyrics particularly.
Yeah, it really speaks to I don't know if you maybe resonate with this word, but for me, it sort of speaks to the healing power of music. And sometimes we think about, you know, I don't know, obviously I'm slightly immersed in the world of counselling and therapy these days with my studies and elsewhere. But, you know, just when people need hope, or they need something to hold on to, or they need some light at the end of the tunnel, that obviously there are lots of places you can go for that, but music and art and literature, they are often the fundamentals, the foundations of a culture to provide that. Not just that, they provide crack and they provide an outlet for rage and anger as well. But there's a lot going on there, isn't there?
Totally. I mean, I've over the years, like, music has been a really important for me and for our family, but for me particularly during difficult times, particularly. I remember being at a Christy Moore concert a good few years ago, and he sang the song about McCarthy on the run. I'm really bad at the names of songs, but it's about this man that they were evicting, and at the time we'd been virtually evicted from our family home, and I just sat in the seat, fell asunder in the seat. I didn't create a scene, but just tears ran down my face, you know, but there was a healing involved in that, you know, and there was a strength that came from within as a result of that, you know. And songs have the power for me to do that, because they take away all the outside noise and help me to focus on what's happening, focus on what needs to be done, as opposed to what's happened. You know, I'm of the opinion sometimes, I think, you know, well, why me? And then the other side of that coin is, why not me? If it's not going to be me, it's going to be someone else. So maybe I'm strong enough to deal with whatever's been thrown at me. And if I'm not strong enough, I have people around me who are strong enough to deal with it, you know, and who can help raise me up to become strong within the weakness, and it's a great gift, and that happens to me a lot with music, with songs and with lyrics, and it can come out of nowhere. It can be one line, and that's what makes it really important for me, and really beautiful as well. And it's not all about down stuff. I get lifted by music as well. The lift I get from it is huge. And one of my regrets is that I don't play an instrument. I've tried many times, but I haven't got the wherewithal to concentrate long enough to do it. And it's happened to me a lot with lots of things. Anything that requires studious endeavor is not strong for me,
So far.
So far.
It's early days, Pat. I've heard of people starting to write songs, when they didn't expect to be ending up writing songs, specifically you. And maybe that's my first segue into that is, can you tell me about, that I happen to be aware from knowing you that you've written songs and you've recorded them with Sarah and or Sal, as she's known in her artist name, your daughter. Can you tell me about how you first entered into the world of songwriting?
Well, you're right. It was completely by accident, really. I was given a present of a weekend at the Writers' Weekend in Doolin, and I didn't really want it. I have to be honest.
Are you one of these guys you give the present and there's a sour puss or
yeah.
Right,
yeah.
go on.
I'm Geraldine, my wife, will tell you I'm impossible to buy anything for.
God.
Because I feel I have everything and I don't want anything. I love giving present, but I'm really bad at receiving a present. And but I got this weekend anyway, and I'd been wasn't long in Clare at the time, and when we moved down to Clare, the cheese press had seats inside, which are back in again now, but the cheese press had seats inside, and it became a kind of regular haunt for me to go in and sit down and watch the world going by. Cheese press and Ennis Simon, and I was watching the world go by, and I noticed people of all types walking up and down, and they all had a way about them. And I went to this songwriting weekend, this writers' weekend, but there was a songwriting workshop in it. I went to a load of the writers' workshops and stuff, and I always sat at the end seat so that I could escape. And I did escape a few times because I didn't feel valid there. I felt a fraud, and which is par for the course for me. So I did go to the songwriting workshop, and when I went into it, I went straight for the end seat, nearest the door. And I ended up being kind of somehow pushed into the middle of the room, and I couldn't get out. There were people left and right, and I was right in the middle. And Sophie Coyle was given the workshop. Sophie's a singer-songwriter from up Dundalk way. Jinx Lennon is her husband, and anyway. She gave some guidance on writing a song, and I started writing a song out of nowhere. But it was Uniforms, it's called, and it basically was my observation of what I saw with people walking up and down. Everyone has a uniform, whether you're a priest or a soldier, and what I noticed was the people that decide that they're not conform and wear a particular style as well. Everyone has a uniform. A hippie has decided he's not conforming, but every hippie wears the same kind of clothes. I wear T-shirts all the time. I'm not conforming, but sure, I'm wearing T-shirts all the time. So everyone has a uniform of a type. And I wrote a song about it, and Sarah recorded it, and we went through the whole gamut of recording in a studio and everything. I wanted to see how it all worked. And it was a great experience, and I had a small spoken word piece in it myself, and it was a great experience. And not long after that, then during the lockdown, I had another song written called Knife's Edge, and I really enjoyed that song. And it's my wish that one day it'll be sung on stage. I'll be a happy man then. And but it's a song that kind of captured me as well. I really enjoyed the song, and Sarah sang it, and Keelan played on it and recorded it. Keelan Kenny, a wonderful musician, Sarah's partner, and we did it in this room here, where I am now, and it was a great experience, So I've a couple of other songs on the boil that I didn't realize. I opened the book I write, and I had a song there about kings and queens and princes and princesses. I didn't even remember writing it down. And it was May 21. I'd written some 4 or 5 lines. So it's probably not appropriate to let it out now because people think I'm jumping on a bandwagon, giving out about people, who I really don't care about anyway, and I've another one called The Cruelty Man, which is I've really struggled with. It's about Ireland, and its services, and I've really struggled to finish it. So I've sent it to a few people, probably I think yourself as well, but I've struggled to finish it, and so that's kind of where I am. I'm a reluctant songwriter, maybe,
Well, it sounds like you're approaching the EP stage here, where you've four of them nearly done. There's something there, Pat, about, as you said, reluctant songwriter, but many of us don't maybe think of ourselves as creative or as artists, whereas, in many ways it's only 1 inch or 1 step away from anybody to express themselves in some form of art, whether it be writing or poetry or a song or a dance or piece of theatre. But we tend to think that that's not us, like a lot of people do, and that it belongs to... Now, obviously, there are those that are especially gifted or especially have put in the hard yards of, study or training or practice. But I think that's a great sort of story to show that the world can open up in front of you if maybe you take that wee step that you didn't want to take.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a funny thing. Every time I hear the word study or practice or education, it brings up the hairs in the back of my neck. Strange thing for a bald man to say, but it brings up the hairs in the back of my neck because I have this reluctance about it, and I kind of wish I didn't. I finished school. I was good in school, and I remember doing the intercert and did fine at it for someone who didn't do a tap. And then I went as far as 5th year, and I finished school. When I did the intercert thing, I was I think it was around 14. I was very young going into secondary. I was 11 going into secondary school. Back in my day, they used to have, if you showed any element of brightness, they let you skip classes, which was really wrong thing to do. It took away a lot of the I wasn't mature, 11 years old going into secondary school, and lads talking about stuff. I hadn't a clue what was going on. And anyway, I did the intercert and did okay. And I got a job then in the local meat factory. Kildare Town's my hometown, and there was a meat factory there, Kildare Chilling Company. I got a job there for the summer, and I earned loads of money. And I've always had a good work ethic, and I worked early morning till late at night. I used to go in at 6 in the morning and work till 10 at night, and earned loads of money. 14-year-old wearing a 3-piece suit going into school then, and I just couldn't stick it. I couldn't stick school, and I finished school much to the sorrow of my father, and he wanted me to go on. I'm the oldest of 7, and he wanted me to go on. I wouldn't go. And then I was out of school about 2 months, and I thought I kind of missed it. But as is normal for me, it was too late then to do anything about it. And I tried to do it by what was called correspondence at the time, the Leaving Cert. But I couldn't stick to it. I hadn't got the necessary discipline or the maturity to do it, and ended up going on an ANCO course, and ended up back working in that meat factory then, and earning loads of money and doing all that stuff. But it was an unusual period in my life. I started drinking around 17, I think, and everything changed, so it was, and I had plenty of money to go and do whatever I wanted, and because I was earning money that, huge money. It was just the time it was in meat factories, so we're all being incentivized, let's call it, to do stuff with meat, and there was lots and lots of work, and I ended up working in a boning hall, earning loads of money. I was earning more money in the 80s than I've ever earned since, and I was drinking it and spending it as quick as I got it. Never did anything constructive with it. Well, then again, some people might say, you know, I learned a lot about life, maybe, you know, but I paid a price. That's so I never got back to studying and ended up working through a long road. I ended up working in a pharmaceutical plant. I went in as an operator and in Newbridge, and I found that I'm good at organizing things, you know, and I ended up becoming what's called a planner, a production planner, and I really had a good job there. You know, I was working in an office, and I had no office experience whatsoever. I didn't know how to turn on a computer. I had to learn how to turn on a computer. I had to learn how to do spreadsheets. I wrote everything down on foolscap pages for 3 months, and everything changed, you know, and that was all. I'd stopped drinking at this stage as well. So a lot of things, a lot of life happened in a space of 12 years, you know, between starting and stopping and getting married and doing all sorts of things that maybe all people do, but everything for me always seemed to have a trail of destruction before there was some kind of balance, you know, and that's kind of where I've been at, you know. And I ended up in Clare, you know, so lots of stuff happened.
Yeah, and just obviously the nature of this podcast is quite Clare focused, and there seems to be a particular draw to Clare, obviously for people interested in music, but there can be a landscape and a community and cultural draw as well, and it seems to be a place that people can, excuse me, end up to come to gather themselves. And I'll go back to that word again. It seems to be coming up for me is just to maybe heal a bit and reflect and find out where they've been and where they are and where they want to be. I don't know. Does that resonate for you?
Absolutely. From a young age, from a teenager, I was coming down to Clare. And used to come down here for the crack and everything associated with coming down to Doolin or wherever and having a bit of crack. I remember I don't know how many years ago it was, but I remember being down in Ennis and Considine's pub had a scaffolding outside, and after a night's drinking, I climbing the scaffold and all that mad stuff, you know. But coming down here, and another one of my things that I didn't do during all that time, I never made it to the Lisdoonvarna Folk Festival. Not one of them.
Yeah.
And that was because I was too busy doing what I was doing where I was. And I was always drawn back down here. And then we came here to live just 5 years ago. Another couple of weeks will be 5 years down here. And it's changed our lives, my life completely. Coming down here, it's opened up a whole new world, and it's been a revelation. You know, it's not just kind of the music, it's the people, and it's the wildness, and it's the openness of it. You know, I mean the openness to the expanse. Where I live, I'm in Milltown Malbay now, and I walk by the sea every day, and being able to do that, and I'm not closed in. I don't, for the first time ever, I don't feel that there's something literally physically blocking me in. And I love the openness of that. I love the openness of, it's not lawless here, but it's definitely wild, you know, and people do their own thing, you know, and I kind of like that, you know, cause there's no real rules, you know. I mean, there's rules when you break them. I know all that stuff, you know, but like, and there's a different way about living down here, and I really have taken to it, you know, and I've slowed down here. I remember when we moved down here first, we lived in Ennissimon, and I was walking down the street with Sarah, and I was flying, you know, and she said, "Dad, where are you going?" And I said, I'm heading down to the shop. but she said it's 10 o'clock, like it's open till about 6. There's no rush. And I had to learn to slow down. I had to learn to walk with ease, and I've learned that here. And I learned about waiting on my spirit to catch up with me, the Aboriginal thing, and I've learned about that down here. I've learned about taking the time, and walking has become hugely important to me here. We've always walked, and we go to the Camino and do stuff like that. And I'm actually heading to the Camino shortly again, and it's that too has been a saving grace for us. For me particularly, it started off as a saving grace, and now it always walks of gratitude. So Clare has enabled that to happen. And I'll be forever grateful. I'm hoping that I stay here. My wife has said we are staying. I've moved a lot of times, and my feet aren't itchy at the moment. Got itchy a bit in the last couple of weeks because I've been a bit kind of with work I do. It hasn't been great, and I get itchy, and that's me in my head wanting to get away. But I realise my head comes with me, so I may stay put, keep my feet in the ground.
Yeah, that's well said. You bring yourself wherever you go, as they say. Yeah, so sort of learning to be with yourself, and you use the term walks of gratitude. That's it's a beautiful term, and or beautiful way of putting it. Strikes me as I suppose maybe we don't always get to a point of gratitude until you've lost something or till you've experienced something where you even know what it is to be grateful for the thing that you have. It's an unfortunate, in some ways, part of human existence that we can't just be grateful starting off, that we seem to have to experience something then to realize to be grateful for it. Or I don't know, yeah, there's a lot in that. I'm just wondering where that perspective comes from, where that understanding of gratitude comes from.
Well, it comes from what you started out saying there. Unfortunately, it comes from loss. It comes from learning, learning to grow up as well, and taking responsibility for my part to play in situations. We over the last few years, like we moved here as a result also of we lost our home, as a result of bad decisions. I'm not going to blame anyone, but it was during a time when got into a situation where bought a lot of things, built it all in a house of cards, and the house of cards fell. And I'm saying things. I mean, we bought property, and this was in Newbridge primarily, and and it all went. And when I looked for help with it, the people who loaned us the money said no, and removed everything, and we ended up in a huge amount of debt and lost everything. And Geraldine's dad, we were living where Geraldine comes from. We built a house there, and Geraldine's the house was taken from us by the bank, and Geraldine's dad allowed us to live in his house for a period of time. Without him, Johnny Phelan, without him, we wouldn't have been able to manage. I had a full-time job, and but we were out the door, literally, and banks ringing 3-4 times a day, and every day. It was chronic. The pain it caused within and for my family, I'm not sure it's something that's easily healed. But I have to watch for becoming resentful, and that's why Clare has been so important to me, because it's enabled me to take away the complications of all that and learned how to deal with all of that and come out the other side. I know why people took their own lives during this time. I remember often driving my car when I was still in Newbridge, driving back to Stratford, and thinking, just take the car away. I didn't want to turn the car into a ditch, but I wanted it to be taken. And really, I was just riddled with fear because I didn't know what was going to happen next. I was afraid I was going to be locked up. I didn't know what was going to happen. And it transpired. Someone told me, I spoke to people about it then, because I was keeping all this in. I spoke to people about it, and they helped me get over it. And then I was able to like stop and think, see what I could do, and talk about it, and take some proper action, and deal with each situation. And suddenly, a lot of it was removed because I was able to talk and make restitution where necessary, and start from fresh again. And that's what we did. We literally started from scratch. Well, below scratch. When the amounts of money were involved is way below scratch, and started and ended up down here in Clare, and it's been a complete reversal of fortune from where we were. I don't mean fortune in a monetary sense. I mean fortune as in emotionally and spiritually, and a complete change, so my life is blessed now. I've the best life anyone could ever have, and only this week then I started getting a couple of phone calls about going back to the work I used to do, and I kind of don't want to do that. I don't want to go back into that world. So I have to make some decisions around that. There's no guarantee I get it. It's highly unlikely I would. They say there's no ageism, but I'm 63 and there's no multinational going to take a 63-year-old on. So that's my experience. So I'm happy enough with that, but I have to try and make ends meet as well.
Thanks for sharing all that, Pat. That's huge, and I know it's only it's a very short version of a big story, and but you definitely created a sense of the almost the darkness, like a real moment of despair, but you did find a way of sort of reaching out the hand where it seemed hopeless. You found a way of asking for help or allowing yourself to receive help, and it strikes me that a lot of us, because of pride or whatever it might be, that it's not always easy to look for help or to receive help, and there's pretty much not a human alive that can exist and got where they are today or will survive life's journey without any help. It's
a fact.
It's a big part of it. And then the other thing that you brought up for me, what listening to you, was this idea of wealth. And there was a moment there where you had a lot of monetary wealth and maybe physical assets, or maybe it was just on paper or digital numbers, whatever. And that has gone since, and it went in a tumultuous kind of turbulent way, but it no longer exists. But you would strike me now as a man who's wealthy, and I feel strongly that we have corrupted notions of wealth and definitions of wealth. Many of us are extremely wealthy and we don't even know it. And we are always looking over the fence at the fella thinking he has or she has all these assets, and here we are with time for our neighbours or friends, or go for a walk, or sing a song, or write a song.
Or learn to encourage people, because pass on what was done for me. Encouragement is one of my favourite words. And I always feel it's really important to encourage people, and especially when they're doing what they're good at, but they're not sure of themselves. Because I know what it's like not to be sure of yourself. I know what it's like to feel, am I a fraud really? Am I entitled to go for this or to go for that? Yeah. So that's kind of why I feel encouragement's important.
Yeah. Well, you certainly do that for a lot of people around these parts, myself included. And I think you've brought that to the community. You're not just somebody that's rocked into town just listening to the tunes and clapping along. You're playing a part as well. And I suppose there can be two views of the world, or two ways of being, where you become a kind of a consumer of the experience or a participant in the experience. And it feels to me that with Anna Music and Pat Ryan Music Services and lots of other thing you do on the quiet, behind the scenes and elsewhere, that you're playing a role in cultivating and adding to the creative community and the community in general. But can you speak to us about how that started off, that kind of transition from you having just landed, going to the sessions, getting to know people, and then at some point you decide, well, maybe I should get involved?
I suppose getting involved is something that I kind of always done, and I try to avoid it, and I can't help but get involved. And I've avoided it in many ways, but I can't keep avoiding things. But when I moved down here, my daughter had just kind of started a professional music career. Since she was really small, she was into music, and all we did was encourage her to play music. Sarah Ryan, and she's now singing under the name of Sal. But when Sarah started out and went to college to study music and write music and do all that, I felt it was important that she find whatever was necessary to do things right, and then I found out about IMRO and about RAP and about PPI and other areas that are collection agencies for musicians. So I helped set Sarah up on all those things. And then when I came down here and I met all the musicians, lots of musicians at different sessions, and I thought, I wonder, are any of these people getting paid for the original music? And I spoke to a few of them, and none of them were, or didn't follow through on registering their works, or didn't think to be anything in it for them. And I spoke to a few and started helping people set up on IMRO and RAP particularly, and now that's kind of what I do for musicians. Musicians invariably, many of them don't like doing admin and that kind of stuff, paperwork, and I kind of like it, and so I do that paperwork for musicians who want it, or I help them. If someone comes to me and asks me about it, I'll give them as much information as I can if they want to set it up themselves. If they want me to set it up, I'll help them set it up, and I'm trying to create a small business with that by word of mouth. I don't go advertising or do anything like that. I just word of mouth stuff, and then as time went on, I was going to gigs and noticed that there weren't that many gigs being run outside of Doolin. There's Lower and there was Doolin, but there weren't that many gigs. So myself and Owen O'Neill plays with the fiddle case, and he's on Clare FM. We became friends over the last few years, and we set up Anna Music and started to run small, intimate gigs, and have been great. We brought some really good artists to play in the venue, and we used the Royal Spa in Listonvarna now, a beautiful venue, an old theatre there that's called the Hall, and it's been revamped, new sound, new lighting, and the Doherty family own it, and it's been great. Now this year has been tricky for gigs. We've had lots of gigs lined up, and unfortunately we had to cancel them. It's probably a fallout as a result of COVID, and then people getting out of the habit of going out, and maybe there's some cost of living issues involved as well, but kind of lost a bit of momentum and lost heart in it, really. I have to be honest. I can't help but be honest. It's almost to a fault, being honest, but I don't know any other way to operate. And but we're kind of reinvigorating now, and the 29th of October we're kicking off again, and with Phelim Drew, and then we're moving to Doolin to run 3 gigs there, and I hope people will be able to come to the gigs. It'd be great to have the support of the small or local gigs, and if people can come along, I can guarantee a really good night, but we do need support from people to come along to these gigs.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my new world is, and I'm hoping that it'll continue. And if it doesn't, I'm okay with all that.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me that we can't just assume that the arts and culture and music exists without people ultimately supporting it. And like, you can go and get involved in technology or finance or pharmaceuticals or any other industry where, you know, it can be more lucrative. And often, not always, but often the artist is on a perilous enough journey and needs, like, they have to live in a financial world that requires rent, mortgages and food like anyone else. And in the age of digitization and the lack of CD sales and so on, the artist isn't making so much often, not always again, but so too the people that support and work with the artist. So it really is important to view it as a collective effort, as you say. And I think you're probably right in your assessment that during the COVID, the harder end of the COVID years, a lot of people ended up at home, and we were told that, sure, isn't it grand? Sure, you can turn on the telly and watch a live streaming concert, or you can watch a box set of some band, or, you know, but like, ultimately nothing can give you that experience of being in a live room with live people and live music. And it's to kind of encourage each other. I see it amongst many people that there's still a bit of trepidation there. I hear about the financial realities and all that too, but there is that just kind of introversion aspects that do require cultivating. Like, sometimes it's okay to stay at home and not be in the world, but Jesus, we kind of have to be in the community, in not just about music, but getting back into meeting each other and seeing each other and exchanging stories and all that kind of stuff. It's so important, particularly in Clare, but everywhere for that matter.
Yeah, it is. It is. We're heading to Kilkee tonight to a cultural thing, and really looking forward to it, and looking forward to meeting some people there and doing all that stuff. And we've even, you know, during the past few weeks especially, we've been going out to sessions and trying to kind of get back into going out again, you know. And it's been hard enough to do because you become very comfortable not going out.
Yeah,
you know?
There's something about just that, exactly what you say there, comfortable. Like, you're comfortable on your couch with your arse on the couch and the remote in your hand, and it's comfortable. But does that mean it's a good thing? Do you know what I mean? Is it? Yeah.
I remember a fella saying to me one time, you know, it's easy to do things at your convenience. Try doing stuff at your inconvenience, you know, and that way then you're being helpful to people. You know, you're getting yourself out of your comfort zone. You might learn something. I'm not saying this for anyone. I'm saying this for me. I try to do some things at my inconvenience. There are times I don't want to do stuff, but I do it anyway because I know ultimately it'll be good for me.
Well, this is it. I mean, like, you got handed the Christmas present of the songwriting thing, and a lot of people could have said, sure, I'm not a songwriter. What do I know about that? I hate courses, I hate study, I hate training, and I'm not going. I'd rather watch the match or whatever. And you did. And now you have the guts of 4 songs to your name, and no one expected that, not least yourself. And if anything else, it's a story to tell, and you've tried things. And I suppose, you know, at the end of the day, the way I see it anyway, is that life is a series of experiences, and that we get to whatever form of pearly gates you might be looking at, that you've at least given things a rattle, and you didn't sit there just with the remote in your hand. And I'm not completely fundamentalist against the remote either, that sometimes there's other people could do with chilling the beans and sitting on the couch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm kind of a telly addict, so I'm not one to say don't look at telly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a real world out there, you know. And I love the fact that Clare has given me the ability to live in this real world, you know. And that's definitely one of the major contributors to me and my life in Clare here. It's a real world now, you know. And you know, with everything that's going on, this is a blessed place to live, you know, in Clare, in Ireland. And, you know, I'm just glad to be part of it, you know, whereas I didn't want to be part of it for a while, you know, and now I am, and grateful for it. You know, there's a lot more to talk on that. It's another story.
Another story, Pat Ryan, chapter one. Is there anything on the horizon for you, Pat, beyond Anam and gigs? It sounds like it's a time of transition, and maybe you're happy to just allow things to unfold. And obviously, you're doing the Camino, and maybe that's the most important thing, is those walks of gratitude and allowing things to come next. Or do you have a fixed vision?
No, I haven't a fixed vision. I have to. I kind of have to let things happen now. I've for many years I was always kind of driven, and I remember a person saying to me one time, "You're the most driven man I know," and I thought it was a great compliment, and I realized afterwards it's quite obnoxious, because it was illegitimate ambition and everything associated with that. I've mentioned a couple of times I've taken the complications out of my life, so I'm able to stand and wait. And if something kind of rattles my cage, I can have a look at it instead of panicking.
Yeah.
And it's a really good place to be.
Yeah.
Pat Ryan Music Services, I hope it keeps going. I hope Anna Music keeps going, and I'd really like if they did. I can't force anything, and nor am I going to force anything. I'm just pleased to be part of what I'm part of here. The most important thing for me is my family. Geraldine, Sarah, David, Claire, his wife, her granddaughter Sophia, Anna, part of David's family, and it's just wonderful to be part of all this, and of course Charlie the dog. Charlie's been really important in our lives. He's over 15 now, and he's the glue that's held it all together when things weren't great. He held it all together. So he's as much a part of the whole setup as anyone else. And so I'm looking forward to new music coming out from people, from Sarah's new music coming out. Sal, I should say, has new music coming out. Steo has new music. I had the privilege of hearing it recently. And myself and Steo walked the Camino section of the Camino in May, and he played some of the new songs, and tore my heart out with pride and with depth, And David Hope has a new album out, another Clare band. So there's a lot of really good stuff happening, and I'm glad to be part of it all, and I'm not going to panic no matter what happens. I've done, my panicking days are long over. So I'm kind of at ease with Pat now, and when Pat's not at ease, people can help me. I'm blessed.
Mm. Are there any things that you actively do, Pat, to keep that sense of ease in your life when you need it, when inevitably the winds blow and things hit bumps? Are there, beyond the walking, are there other things that you're mindful to do in just keeping the show on the road in a healthy way and keeping the head in good order and that kind of thing?
Meditation has been a huge part of my life. I was introduced to meditation by a Cistercian monk who introduced me to Buddhist meditation, and his name is Michael Ryan, as it happens. He's in Bolton Abbey in Moon, near Athy in Kildare, and I went to him. I'd known him for years, and I went to him after 10 years, and he said to me, "I've been waiting for you to come back." And I thought he was gone back. He's from Newfoundland. And he introduced me to the Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh. And that's part of my life's journey anyway, part of how I live, and meditation is part of my program. And it's meditation is a huge part of anyone's life if they can get into it. I'm not as strong a practitioner as I should be. And when I do practice in a regular way, my life is just balanced. It's not big, huge changes, and it's balanced. And that's what works. Like I'm just at ease when that's the case. And when I'm out of focus or out of kilter, I realize I'm out of the day. So I try and bring things back into the day as best I can. And when I'm in the day, I can achieve anything, whatever it is I need to do. I don't want to become the ruler of the world, but I can achieve whatever I need to do today. And if that means, sometimes the most difficult thing for any person to do is put their feet on the floor in the morning. And I know this much: when I'm not feeling well, and I stay and I'm in bed, and if I stay there, my thinking's awry. The minute I put my feet on the floor, I'm grounded, literally, and my thinking changes. That works for me. I know that, and sometimes that's as good as it gets. Put my feet on the floor, and if that's what gets me this day, that's good. I'm good with that. Most days I'm not like that. That I have to peel myself out of bed. I'm good. I'm up and at it pretty most days, but there are times when I'm not, and I make no big decisions when my head's not right, and when my heart is not in the right place. I make no major decisions, and I wait, and I'm really lucky that Geraldine knows when I'm not right, So, I have that kind of a peace beside me, So I'm lucky that way.
Yeah, and she's obviously, Geraldine's someone that would be probably shy to be talking on something like this, but she's a huge part of your life, as you've mentioned several times here, and you definitely, you might meet Pat Ryan on his own from time to time, but you are ultimately a dynamic duo, and I often think of you when I see you. I'd be joking and slagging you, saying you're like a romantic young couple, and sure, isn't it great to see?
When I met Geraldine, I remember when I met her, and 2 weeks later, I said to the fellow who was bringing me over to meet her again, I said to him, "I'm going to marry her." And within 10 months, we met in September '82, and in July '83 we were married. It's the best thing I ever did. And I hear people saying, "God, you'd be out of jail for life 4 times since." I think it's the most stupid thing I ever heard. It has been the best thing that's ever happened to me is marrying Geraldine, and I'm unapologetic about that.
Amen. Well,
Amen.
let's maybe leave it at that, Pat, because it's a great way to end, and you've shared a lot of yourself in this conversation. I'm very grateful to it, and I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it, and that sense of perspective is huge that you have, and that sense of gratitude is ringing true. And I've no doubt, when you have all those pieces in order, insofar as they can be in order, then the creativity will no doubt flow, because it always, you can't almost stop it, because it's like a life force, isn't it? It's something will come forward, it'll reveal itself, but it often operates as a mystery that we don't really know what is coming knocking on the door next.
You just don't know, and I suppose that's the beauty of life itself. It's not planned, so I'm not a big God person, but if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So
you could get into, I don't know, end up making a hip hop album or punk or grime. You could surprise us all yet, or
could all happen.
Join the Kilfenora Keely band. First Kildare man ever. Maybe there has been one, but
I doubt it. It'd take a job to get in there now.
Yeah, you need to put in another few decades. Lovely, Pat. Thanks for the chat. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Rory. I really appreciative of you asking me. And it's been another gift to become a friend of yourself. So thanks very much.
Ditto. Thanks very much, Pat. Take care.